Hello and welcome to the final video in this retro game art series. In this video I'm going to be talking about GUI and HUDs. Now if you're not familiar with the acronyms, GUI stands for Graphical User Interface. HUD stands for Heads Up Display. To explain these a little more clearly, I'm going to pull up these examples from Street Fighter II Turbo. Now the user interface, or the graphical user interface, is anything that you need to click on or push to be able to navigate the system. So think of your loading menu, your character select screens, your level select screens, even your pause menus, things like that are part of the GUI. The HUD is the heads-up display. That's the art that's there to give you feedback about what's going on in the level or to your character. In the case of Street Fighter II, it would be the health bars that are up at the top of the screen. It would be the score. It would be the names of the characters next to their health bars, the pop-ups that tell you what round it is. So any of those notifications, those are part of the HUD of the gameplay. And so between the GUI and the HUD, that provides the rest of the structure for your gameplay. Because it's not enough just to animate a character and animate an environment. If you want to create this larger experience and give the player things to interact with so that they understand what's happening in the game, how to progress through the game, even things like the dialogue boxes that can pop up and give your player feedback, that's part of the GUI and the HUD systems. Now, when you're developing these retro systems, you have limited space to make this look good. And so you need to streamline it down to what the bare essential information and feedback is, so you can work through what those elements are, give them their space, and make sure that they're clear for the player. Unlike some current games where you can just pack and pack and pack tons of stuff in, there's a few that my kids play that if we're on a smaller TV and we have 4 players on there, we can't see what's happening in the menu systems. For these older style games, you're limited by that 256 by 224 screen resolution, so make sure that you're planning that in as you're trying to develop this style. You can add some elements of stylization in there. So Street Fighter had its own way of doing that. This is from the Lost Vikings 2, which was one of those cool early Blizzard games. And this had, these fun frames that had that mix of technology look to it, as well as giving a lot of information about the players and what was happening. And these were Vikings that were taken into the future, and then they're navigating puzzles. Spaceships, whatever. And you were switching between who the players were, who the active players were. So their HUD had to reflect what that information was they needed to convey. They had to show who the characters were, whether they were the selected one, the primary active character, whether they were an idle one, or whether they had died in the process. And usually by the time you lost a character or two, you weren't able to complete the puzzle and have to redo the level. That's how the system was built. So you want to figure out exactly what your gameplay elements are and then plot out how that needs to be represented. And the only way with any kind of UI, UX work to figure out, that's user interface, user experience work, to figure out exactly how well it's working is to have people test it, try it, and then you use that feedback to help improve your system. All right, so I'm going to load this up in Unity right now. And I'm going to show you an example of how this can look. So once more, this needs to be about the full user experience. So when I start up a game, we have the company identifier, you have the developer identifiers and all that stuff. And then eventually you want to get to the landing page. Well, that's what I've got. I've got this that gives the players a feel for what this game is going to be, what's happening, gives some of the elements of things. And there's a lot of movement and animation to try and engage the player. When I started, this game is a love letter to retro games, and so this is replicating the Super Famicom, Super NES systems. So as I go through and select these levels, these are cartridges that then, when I do finally select a level, go down, and that's the level select. So that was all part of the GUI. Now I've got the text, which I can click to move along. And when I jump into the game, I've got the splash fight pop up, but I'm pausing it here just so you can see how this is built out. This game was designed to be played on phones and tablets, and so it's meant to be very bright, simple. There are 4 buttons. When you click down, there's the block up, block down, attack up, attack down, and you can see by these little markers where those quadrants are for where you click on the screen to have things happen. The other information that the player needs to know is what is this current level that they're on, how many lives do they have left, which is up at the top of the screen. Down here under the character and the enemy that they're fighting is their health. That's how much health is left. Each heart represents 1 hit. And then under the character, there's the power-up bar. So as the character blocks attacks, they charge up their super attack. When they fill that up, there's an extra button that pops in, which is the super attack. So I will let this play and kind of give you a feel for how this goes. So I can attack. When this blue slime, if it ever does attack, and I block it, you can see this bar starts to fill. I'm going to block it again. 1 more, and I should be able to use my super attack. And there we go. There's the super attack. And then I win, and it moves on to the next one. Green slime appears, and then the next part begins. So that gives me my overall experience, and it gives me all of the information that I need to understand what's happening in the level. Now, based on what kind of game you want to create, your GUI and HUD will look different. So I encourage you to look around at games that exist. Start plotting through your own ideas. If this is something you want to pursue, even if you're not sure how to program it yet, that's fine. Start doing mock-ups for how you think the mechanics would work, how you think it would look, and that's a good way to build up your skill set with this retro art development. Anyway, that wraps it up for the series. Hopefully you've been able to learn a lot, and this is encouraging you to jump into some of these softwares, Photoshop, Microsoft Paint, doesn't really matter. Get something where you can paint sprite by sprite, pixel by pixel, and start creating stuff and have fun. Anyway, hope this helps out. Take care. Bye-bye.